pairing cheese with beer, fried cheese drenched in honey, and black market milk. This week, it's all about cheese.
Traveling the world to bring you delicious dishes, tasty beverages, and interesting experiences. This is the Destination Eat Drink Podcast on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
I'm Brent Peterson. Welcome to Destination Eat Drink. Destination Eat Drink is for foodies who love to travel and travelers who love to eat. And this week, it's cheese from Canada, Sardinia, Australia, and more. But first, do me a favor, rate and review Destination Eat Drink if you could. Your 5-star review helps other foodie travelers just like yourself find the podcast. And if you're really into food and travel, my foodie travel guides are available as ebooks. They're filled with all the best things to eat and drink, as well as the coolest things to do in cities in Portugal, Spain, and even Milan, Italy. And I just added a complete Portugal foodie travel guide in one ebook. 17 cities all around Portugal with everything to eat and drink when you visit. It's a must if you're planning a trip to Portugal. Check out my ebooks at buymeacoffee.com/destinationeatdrink/extras, and thank you very, very much. This week on the show, we're checking out cheese from all over the world. Italian cheese, Canadian cheese, Australian cheese, and more. Blue cheese, pecorino, poutine. And I'm starving, so let's eat.
Destination Eat Drink.
Darlie Newman is the host and creator of the TV show Travels with Darlie. In fact, the new season of Travels with Darlie is coming out in 2025. We'll have her on the show to talk about that in a few weeks. But for now, here's Darlie talking about a recent episode in Canada and the poutine she enjoyed there. Let's go to Canada. I've talked about this on the podcast. I'm kind of obsessed with Canada because I went there as a little kid, but I haven't been back, and I've intended to go time and time again, and it just hasn't worked out. You did an episode on Quebec, and I think for a lot of folks, when they think about going to Canada, it's Toronto or Vancouver, maybe Montreal, but Quebec doesn't make it to the top of their list, and I think it should. All the videos I see makes me really, really, really want to go to Quebec. Talk a little bit about your experience in Quebec, Darlie.
So that's my third visit to Quebec, and I think there's a lot you can do in all the different seasons. I've been in the winter, and I've gone to Mont Tremblant and gone skiing and dog sledding. I really want to go back and go to the Ice Hotel outside of Quebec City, but I haven't made it there yet. But I was in Quebec City for the New France Festival, which is the beginning of August, and it's this annual festival where people dress up as if we're in Quebec City back during the time when it was considered New France. And there's a lot of wonderful history and live music going on, and it's just visually fun. But also really great options, not just in Quebec City for food, but outside of Quebec City. I mean, I did on a foodie tour in Montreal, and I went and tried Montreal bagels. I went and had street side gnocchi that was only $5. A lot of interesting food options there. But when you go to Quebec, you have to try the poutine. I think it's on most people's lists. And I was taste testing it as I went through. I did try some good poutine at a place called La Bouche, which is a quirky kind of restaurant in Old Quebec City. And they have these funky interiors. They have this sort of table of ice where you can take maple taffy and you can make yourself a little like iced maple syrup dessert where they pour taffy over the ice and you swirl it onto a stick, almost like a popsicle of maple taffy. And it comes out kind of it's really good. It comes out icy, and it's just a fun little thing to do when you're visiting. But they have great poutine at that restaurant. And then I would also say, if you want a little excursion to an area of Quebec that it's visited by a lot of people in Vermont because it's not far over the border. But I went to the Eastern Townships, and I'm there on this beautiful lake at Manoir Have, which is a resort that's often ranked as one of the top in Canada, if not the world. The Clintons go there. Mystery writer Louise Penny frequents this destination to write a lot of her books, which is kind of fun. But that was the best poutine that I tried on my trip, was at their restaurant. I was pairing it with, of course, a local IPA and a wonderful dessert. But I thought it was interesting because, again, the products they were using to make the poutine were hyper local. So they were local cheese curds. And also, and if you know poutine, it's French fries with cheese curds and gravy. But the gravy that they created for this particular poutine was made with birch syrup from the birch trees that were right there on the property. So it doesn't get any more.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, doesn't get any more local than that. But it was, I thought, wow, how is this going to be with birch syrup? I'd never tried birch syrup before. It was fantastic. So you might even want to just go there if you're in that area, make a little day trip excursion, or go for lunch or dinner and try the poutine at Manoir Hove, because it was really good.
Katie Parla is a New York Times best-selling author who also hosts the Gola podcast. She champions the great cheeses of Sardinia. Talk a little bit about the cheese of Sardinia, because you talk about it in your book and makes my mouth water. We're not just talking pecorino. What kinds of cheeses are we talking about?
Well, a lot of the cheeses are pecorino, technically, because pecorino just means sheep's milk cheese. So while there is some cow's milk cheese production, the majority is pecorino, with like the little footnote that 97% of pecorino romano is actually made in Sardinia. But you have a range of different pecorino cheeses that are aged in different styles. The production of the cheese is happening at a certain total titratable acid range that affects the final flavor, that affects the texture of the curds. And so even though there are literally hundreds of different types of pecorino in Sardinia, they can have really beautiful expression and nuance due to what the animals are eating. They're often grazing on, a salad of wild greens, and the way that the cheese is produced, the temperature of fermentation, the type of inoculation, and the sort of acidic environment that's happening during the process. And what's so great about Sardinian cheese is that it is often used in sweets. And I actually just made seadas, which are these ravioli with a lard-based dough. They are 4, or even if you're lucky, 5 inches in diameter, filled with cheese, and then you fry them, ideally in lard, and then drench them in honey. And that's kind of the signature sweet that people on the mainland are most familiar with. Although there are many other examples of cheesy deliciousness on the island.
Wow, that sounds amazing. Let's talk about these pecorino, these different expressions of pecorino, as you put it. What would be some that we would run across? I guess maybe the question should be, is there any that we would run across in a market in the U.S.? Are there any well-known ones that we could actually find if we went to a Whole Foods or maybe a gourmet Italian market that actually make it over the Atlantic and people can enjoy it? Or is it really, hey, you've got to go to Sardinia if you want to try these? You'll
find the major appellation. So when I say that, I mean like Pecorino Romano is a DOP, which implies that the name of the cheese is also its location and style of production. You also have Fiore Sardo and Pecorino Sardo. Those you'll find in Whole Foods and other cheese shops within Italian selection for sure. Finding other cheeses can be a little bit of a challenge, although there is this place with a very silly name, I know, the Beverly Hills Cheese Shop. It's in Beverly Hills. And it's got this incredible curated selection of Sardinian cheeses, but only because the owner really goes through jumping through hoops to import the cheese. It's challenging to move dairy products across the ocean into the United States.
Sure.
It's not as though you're going to find a huge range of Sardinian cheeses in North America. But then again, when I go to the supermarket or to the cheese shop here, I don't find a huge range of Sardinian cheeses either. It's a matter of going to the island, visiting, and asking about what the local cheese situation is. And that's how you get to experience Sardinian cheeses. So more of my agenda to get you to go to Sardinia.
for me, that's what travel's all about anyway. It's like, what is the local thing that I'm going to be enjoying here, whether it's a cheese, whether it's pasta, whether it's a style of coffee, whatever it is. So there you go.
Totally.
Get the ticket, go to Sardinia. So now with our cheese, one of the recipes that we talk about this simple cuisine in Italy and Sardinia, and one of the things that I saw in your book that really kind of struck my taste buds was the pane frittau. Can you talk about this? Because you do use some Sardinian cheese on this recipe.
Yeah, so pane frittau is a dish that's made from soaking pane carousel, which is a twice-baked cheese. Think of it kind of like a pita, but with the thinner layers. And then when you cook pita in the oven, it balloons up. And if you took that pita out of the oven and bisected it into 2 sheets and then baked those sheets again, it would be very crispy and brittle. Mm-hmm. I don't know, it kind of reminds me of like fattoush in a way. That salad with like the pita strips. But the pane frittau is made by taking the sort of deliberately dried out pane carousel, soaking it ideally in mutton broth. You could do veggie broth too. And then spooning over eggs cooked in tomato sauce and then hitting it with a healthy dusting of pecorino. And this could be a starter. It could be a main dish. And it's one of the dishes that in Sardinia, in fact, transcends regional distinctions. There are many pasta shapes or breads or recipes that you only find in one place, whereas you find the cheese ravioli with honey sayata that I mentioned earlier. You find that everywhere, and you find pane frittau in many places as well. It's become kind of like a pan Sardinian dish. It's very good.
Bread, eggs cooked in tomato, tons of pecorino. Oh my God. That is, unreal. Kevin Durkee is the founder and Big Cheese at Culinary Adventure Company, a food tour company in Canada. He tells me about his favorite blue cheese. Kevin, last time you were on, you were talking about Canadian cheese, and you had me convinced Canadian cheese belongs at the top with French, Italian, and American cheeses. Talk a little bit about what kind of cheese we can get in Nova Scotia.
Just a little bit? Okay. Well,
you're a cheese guy, so in fact, you don't even have to self-edit. Go ahead and just wax poetic about cheese.
I appreciate that, Brent. Actually, I'm going to spend most of my time letting the world know about my favorite blue cheese. Blue cheese is an interesting thing. It is, for a lot of folks around the world, can be quite polarizing, particularly here in North America. We had a lot of Danish and strong and really, really pungent blue cheeses coming in the 70s and 80s. And for many of us, that's what we grew up on. Buffalo wing with a blue cheese dip and sort of this weird sort of acidy kind of energy to it. We didn't really have subtle, sweet and nuances of blue cheeses that are found around the world. A number of years ago, I was introduced to an incredible business called Blue Harbor Cheese. And again, they're found in Dartmouth. So this is almost like the Dartmouth podcast today, but it's sort of the Brooklyn, if you will, to Halifax. It's got that sort of edgier focus with artisanal producers and lots of delicious things happening. But Blue Harbor Cheese is an artisanal cheese producer. They specialize obviously in traditional and not so traditional handmade cheeses. But I think one of the best things about this business is that it is almost predominantly women owned and led. Lindell Finley is the cheesemaker and owner. And when she started the business in 2013, she wasn't represented in Canada. She wanted this passion of making cheeses, wanted to focus on really great local quality using incredible Nova Scotian milk. But she, was sort of a trailblazer, and she continues to lead an incredible team led by other cheesemakers in her group, like Catherine and a variety of others. But they decided to sort of lean in heavy on blue cheeses. And the blue cheese that I am absolutely addicted to is a product that they call Urban Blue. And as I mentioned, it's my favorite blue cheese in Canada. And frankly, I've not had a better one almost anywhere. But the difference with this particular one, it's a triple cream and it's a dolce flavored. It's the sweetness and the richness and the inspiration from a gorgonzola, if you will, from Italy. It's that buttery creaminess and softness but it also has this complexity that is not only sweet, but meaty. It has a rich, buttery note. I call it a starter blue. We do a lot of cheese tasting at the Culinary Adventure Company. And a lot of people, as I've mentioned a moment ago, get their backs up and, I don't like blue cheese. And I ask them to just trust me, because when you take a little piece of this beautiful urban blue, you drop it on your palate and you close your eyes for a moment and you just let it swirl around. Yes, there's that little sharpness of the blue coming forward first, but most people, if they give it a second, they're going to get an entire incredible flavor of pan-fried buttered mushrooms, this richness, this sweetness, this earthiness that comes from it. It's incredibly unique, incredibly delicious. And even the look of it, they make it in this long loaf. So it's a shorter, square loaf. And these beautiful slices have the incredible veining going straight through. And it's a gorgeous piece to have on any charcuterie cheese board. But again, with this sort of triple cream, this richness, this sweetness, it's not that sort of powerful knock your socks off kind of effort of like a Maytag blue cheese or a heavy Danish blue cheese. It's subtle, it's sweet, it's meaty, a little drizzle of Canadian maple syrup or a local honey from Nova Scotia just absolutely pops it. It is incredible. And you probably have heard, and hopefully your listeners have as well, my mouth has been watering as I've been explaining that. So it is really a favorite of mine. So Blue Harbor cheese, they make a few other options, some washed rind and some other cheeses, and they're always continuing to innovate. But their signature, the top of the heap, is the Urban Blue. And it is something that you need to try. One thing to note, in Canada and like elsewhere in the world, we have sort of 3 levels of cheese production. We have a local market system where you can be licensed to sell just within your sort of geographic region. You have provincial licensing, which means that if I produce it in Nova Scotia, I can sell it anywhere in Nova Scotia. But then you need to have federal licensing, which takes you out of Nova Scotia and be able to be sold and enjoyed everywhere. Only till about 2, maybe 3 years ago now, Lindell and her team were only provincially licensed. So it was something that I had to travel to Nova Scotia for. I had to fill up my suitcase and bring it home.
Wow.
But recently they've been able to have federal licensing. So now I can find it in, my local cheese shops. I can buy it from Lindell directly and get it into some of the things that we do at the Culinary Adventure Company. So anyone headed to the Maritimes needs to really source it out. It's incredible.
I love this idea of the Urban Blue, and I'm telling you, Kevin, this is how we're going to get my girlfriend to like blue cheese, because she's one of those people that you're talking about that hasn't had great experiences with blue cheese. I love it. She's been more reluctant, so this is going to be her entry point into blue cheese, the Urban Blue.
And it's made by women for women. So it is an incredible story as well of, artisanal entrepreneurship and innovation. And these incredible women are making something really spectacular. So yes, I think we've got her. We've got something for her.
Another thing you mentioned about the cheese that I found fascinating, something that I didn't think of before that makes total sense, was you said, pairing the cheese with some local honey, which of course everyone knows honey and cheese is a beautiful combination, but you also said maple syrup. It makes total sense. Maple syrup would be a perfect pairing with cheese for the same reason that honey would be a perfect pairing. But I don't think I've ever had maple syrup on my cheese board. This must be a Canadian thing, but I think it's a brilliant idea.
I think so. It certainly is representing the power and the delicious, efforts of maple. I mean, it's, I think if you prick any Canadian, we probably bleed a little bit of maple syrup somewhere. So it happens. But I think the difference with maple rather than honey can certainly be delicious, but unless you get a variety that has got a real floral note, honey can be quite sweet just on its own. And when you get that sort of warm amber notes of a maple from obviously a beautiful, rich, dark maple syrup, it can really counter a lot of the saltiness and a lot of the, the other flavors that are complemented on a cheese board or a charcuterie board. So maple syrup is a little bit of an inside tip for anyone in the world. If they can get the good Canadian Quebec maple syrup, as we spoke before, some great Canadian cheeses, a little goes a long way.
Monique Bayer is the founder of Walk Melbourne Tours. She talks about Australian cheese and how foodies there skirt the rules regarding raw milk. The one last thing I wanted to ask you about, Monique, is cheese, because I don't necessarily think about cheese when I think about Australia, but you've got a huge countryside. There must be lots of dairy farms there. And I read about something called a black pearl cheese. Maybe you want to talk about that, or maybe you have some other kind of cheese that you'd like to talk about. But tell me about cheese in Australia and Melbourne specifically.
Sure. Well, if you think about the kind of environment that produces wine, quite close to that often is a similar kind of environment where dairies might be amenable in the same kind of climate. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So if you think about France, where the red wine grapes grow, also pretty good for goats and sheep and, small scale dairies and that kind of thing. So it goes to say that in all the different wine regions across Australia, often there's pretty good cheese making as well. I don't know about the Black Pearl, to be honest with you. What I do know about is that we've got some fantastic cheesemakers in Australia. Some of the most delicious cheeses, especially goats, especially Chev, I've had are local. And we have a lot of very strict import laws in Australia to do with importing unpasteurized goods for biosecurity concerns. So if any of the unpasteurized cheeses must be made locally. Does that make sense?
Yes. Same in the U.S. Raw cheese, raw milk cheese is very difficult to come by. So you'll see small farms that make their own. And it sounds like you have a similar rule there where you're not going to find like raw milk French cheese coming in Australia.
Except for Roquefort.
You got to make the exception for Roquefort, right?
There's a long story that goes back, actually. We've got one particularly high-profile cheese expert in Australia, and he fought against the regulations against Roquefort for a long time. And so Roquefort goes through stages of being allowed and not being allowed into the country. But there's obviously a whole lot of other great European raw milk cheeses that are still regulated against. In fact, the production of raw milk cheeses in Australia for sale or raw milk is also, to the best of my knowledge, illegal. And so you'll see at farmers markets, particularly dairies selling bath milk, bottled bath milk. And everybody knows that it's just unpasteurized milk, and people buy it and they have to buy it under the premise that, I'm just buying this to take a bath in it.
Oh, my goodness.
It's not for consumption.
Oh, my goodness.
So it is labelled as bath milk and it is sold. And, of course, we all know people are going home to drink it or make cheese from it or whatever else, or yogurt. But it can't be sold as an edible product. It's at your own risk.
This is black market milk. I love it. Such a great story.
Having said that, that's very small scale production, and we have lots of fantastic organic and biodynamic dairies who do pasteurize their milk in a gentle way, and they sell it all across the country. Don't worry. So we have very good quality milks in lots of different labels, but there is sometimes at the farmers markets you will see that kind of black market bath milk.
Okay, that's Monique Bayer. You can reach her and book a tour at walkmelbourne.com.au. I've also got links to Kevin, Katie, and Darley in the show notes. Well, that's it for this week, and that's it for 6 years of the podcast. Yep, 6 years of Destination Eat Drink. Next week, we start year 7. Next week's episode will be in Lyon, France, for a candy honoring silk workers, the surprising origin of French macaroons, and a market named for a gastronomy legend. That and much more in one of the truly greatest foodie cities in the entire world, Lyon. So don't miss that. Until then, I've got a lot more foodie travel stuff for you to check out. I just posted a brand new story. This is about climbing to the top of the tallest lighthouse in Portugal. And yep, I have the pictures to prove it. You can read that at destinationeatdrink.com/blog. I also have a brand new video. It's about a meal cooked in a volcano in the Azores. It's true. And you can see that by clicking on the video tab at destinationeatdrink.com or by going to my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/@destinationeatdrink. Destination Eat Drink 946. And remember, my ebook, Foodie Travel Guides, are available at buymeacoffee.com/destinationeatdrink/extras. They make a great gift for the foodie traveler on your list, and thank you very, very much. Destination Eat Drink is distributed by the Radio Misfits Podcast Network and Ed Silla. Thanks, Ed. I'm Brent Peterson, and I'll see you down the road.
Join us next week for another culinary adventure on Destination Eat Drink, a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.